365 is a new large-scale piece of theatre that I'm directing with the National Theatre of Scotland, and it's for the Edinburgh International Festival, and it's going to be on at the Playhouse in Edinburgh, which is a very big venue, a big stage, and it's about care leavers when they get to age 16 to 18, leaving the care system and entering a practice flat. So it's going to have a cast of around 15 young actors, all the new young talent from Scotland, coming through RSAMD and from other kind of drama schools and colleges around. Very exciting. The story of 365 is about the journey of these young people from childhood to adulthood, which is a concern that many of us have, and are they able to become mature adults in a kind of inverted commas civilised society. And we're concentrating on, I mean, it's all made up, all the characters are fictional. We've done a lot of research there, and we've met a lot of young people who've been in care, but David Harrower, who's writing it, is creating all the characters himself. They're not based directly on anybody at all. We're following lots of different stories, but the story really is about this flat and about the people that come through the door of this flat, and all their fears and their dreams, and rather than focusing on a kind of EastEnders kind of documentary style realistic piece of theatre, it's much more physical, it's much more about the fantasy, about what's in their imaginations and what's in their heads. We sort of figured that, you know, we've all seen a lot, although it's brilliant, of the kind of Ken Loach material, and we're trying to find a different way of telling those stories. I've been thinking for a long time in the same way as when we created Blackwatch, knowing that that was an important issue to look at. I'm really aware of all the kind of claims about eradicating child poverty, and in fact in the news today 1 in 3 children in Britain are, live in poverty, and I just felt there's a massive hypocrisy about us as a country, that we believe that we're civilised and we're such a rich country, and yet all this goes on, and I feel that people are becoming more and more scared of children and childhood. But I didn't know where to place that. I knew that that was important, but I didn't want to come up with some kind of sentimental piece of theatre about aren't children great, and you know. But then I was talking to somebody who's a trustee of Barnardo's, and she told me about these practice flats, and there's lots of different kinds of flats, but basically it's about these children who've been in care and where do they go to learn the skills to become an adult in an adult world. So we did a lot of research, we worked with a brilliant researcher, but what emerged during the research, which has become the most interesting thing and is going to be the story that we follow, is actually, although the children go into these flats to learn budgeting, and to learn how to cook and how to make cups of tea, actually they don't have the emotional skills often to be able to be adults, and that's the most important thing. You know, is how can you imagine a future, how can you work your way through your own problems, so that's what we're concentrating on. Jay's one of the kind of strongest characters to emerge, and she's a girl who's 16, and we're going to have lots of different stories of lots of different characters that are peppered through it, but Jay is going to be the continuous story. So through Jay's story we understand what the flat is, and we understand where she starts. She sees the conventional beginning, middle and end, if you like, of the story. And Jay is somebody who, in the flat, wants more than anything to connect with her mother. So the story of Jay is about, she's not allowed to bring her mother into the flat because they've told her that's not good for her. So the story of Jay is about how she will try to connect with her mother, which is the only person she wants to have a relationship with. Kind of done 3 layers of research. The first one is the sort of legislation, the legal side of what exists for these young people, what are governments saying, what's being set up for them, so that we could understand that. The next one was about speaking to social workers, people who run different kinds of organisations, so that was the kind of middle layer of our research, and then the third layer was actually speaking to young people themselves. So we've kind of worked our way through all of those areas, and we continue to do that. But the thing that's been really interesting about it is that there's no consistency. So I think that'll be reflected in the piece. There's not like one particular way of doing something. Everybody is different, and people call it like a postcode lottery according to where you are. Sometimes you're lucky enough to get into a Barnardo's flat, sometimes you're lucky enough to be in a very good residential care home. There's amazing facilities and support, but sometimes there really isn't. So that's been quite a challenge.